Today we have the Miami Grand Prix in F1 Manager, a new circuit, the newest circuit in fact to the Formula 1 calendar, and well, I have an upgrade. Side pods. Minor issue, I've only got one version of the upgrades, only one part manufactured. I'm going to have to pick which driver gets it. Someone's not going to be happy. How's it going, folks, and welcome back to episode number 5 of our F1 Manager playthrough here with Alpine. I hope you're enjoying this series as always. If you are, and I usually mention this at the end of the video, do like the video, feed the YouTube algorithm with a comment, maybe share the series with a friend. I'm pretty excited for today's race because, as I've already mentioned, we have a pretty big upgrade in this car for today. We have a brand new side pod, which is installed on car number 2. Esteban Ocon, the younger of our two drivers, the driver who I feel like has got a little bit unlucky this season, but last weekend he put it all together, unlike Fernando Alonso, who crashed twice on the same corner. You might be wondering, Jack, how big of an upgrade can it be? It's new side pods. It can't be that game-changing, can it? Well, here's the two cars compared to one another. It really does make a difference in the straight line speed of the car. You can see the top speed and acceleration of car 2, which is Esteban Ocon's car, with the upgrade is improved. The effects of DRS are also more significant and more pronounced. I feel like it's going to be interesting today to just see how the two drivers do compare to one another. There's not been a great deal to separate them. Of course, it will be a tiny bit concerning now if Esteban Ocon goes slower than Alonso in qualifying. In terms of the other projects we've currently got going on when it comes to development, we've got a new rear wing design that is going to be ready in a day's time. We've had 6 of our 4 engineers on it, so a significant upgrade, and the ATR period has reset, and as a result of that, we now have a new underfloor project. This project will be done in 63 days, and it is a significant upgrade to the low-speed cornering of our car, which is an area of the car which, well, if we're being honest, it's a bit crap. 14th fastest in the low-speed cornering, an upgrade that is a few months away now, but when it arrives, we will feel a difference. One final thing to mention just going into this weekend of racing is the fact that we've had to put a new gearbox in Fernando Alonso's car. In Formula 1, you get an allocation of gearboxes, engine parts, and also ERS power units, and over the course of the year these take wear. When you hit a wall like Fernando Alonso did a few times last weekend, it impacts the wear. It is kind of expected at some point we will have to take some extras. When we take extras, we will take grid penalties on those weekends. As a result, it's kind of in your interest when you do need to take the extra parts, you know, a 5th engine, a 4th gearbox, a 3rd power unit, that you take them all at the same weekend. But that is future Jack's problem. We don't need to worry about that just yet. When it comes to sponsor objectives for this weekend ahead, I feel like at Miami we should be okay. High-speed cornering is an important asset at this track. It's something that we're good at. I think that we can get a driver into the top 8. We can get 2 to qualify into the 3rd session, so no crashes today, please, Fernando. And I've also set up a qualifying hot streak where if we get 2 drivers into the top 10 for the next 2 races, we get a significant bonus. Hopefully that's going to be able to be something we achieve. And finally, before we get into the race weekend, you can just see here the parts that really matter at Miami. Here is the attributes for your car that are going to make or break your weekend potentially. So the cornering is good for us. We're great in high-speed cornering. The low-speed cornering slightly less so. Of course, the acceleration and DRS acceleration being factors should be interesting with Ocon's car, particularly Sector 3. There is one long straight, you can see here, with DRS. That is an area of the track that with the new side pods, I think we're going to see significant performance differences between our drivers. Of course, going into this session, we're going to have Ocon drive the car, but in terms of car 1, I want to give Piastri race time. Alonso's contract is up at the end of the year. Oscar Piastri, by comparison, one of the best young drivers on the grid. I want to keep him happy. He signed that new contract. I expect to see him take part in the majority of first practice sessions throughout this year. Heading into this race weekend, of course, I have just simulated practice. Car setup knowledge not looking great for either driver, to be honest. Track acclimatization, Alonso suffering a little bit because Piastri did drive in P1. Looking at P1 performance, as you can see, Ocon was faster in the Alpine, but considering that side pod upgrade wasn't the most significant of differences between the times. I was hoping we'd see a bit more of a notable improvement, as was the case in P2 and P3, really. Esteban Ocon going faster than whoever was in the other car every single time, but by no more than 0.2 of a second. I can see a little bit of rain behind the user interface. The flashbacks are coming in from last weekend where we were driving over in Italy. Hopefully Alonso doesn't bin it in the wall this time. Let's go see how we got on in qualifying, shall we?
Radio check. Loud and clear.
So another wet qualifying. Hopefully, I'm not going to be feeling a sense of deja vu at the end of this session. Q1 looking like it's going to be raining fairly steadily to begin with, get heavier, and then maybe dry out as the session goes on. So with that in mind, I went out with some early flying laps, really just to make sure that Alonso and Ocon got a time on the board in case the forecast was wrong. It had been incorrect last weekend, so going into this weekend, I wanted to make sure we were in a good spot. Both drivers running very, very close to one another. Interesting to note that Alonso in the slightly slower car did set the better time, and while having set our times, the rain did get heavier. The track condition changed to wet. With that, DRS is disabled. But the rain throughout this session was really hovering around that critical 4mm threshold. Of course, above 4mm, you want to be on the wets. Any lower, you want to be on the inters. As for the forecast, well, halfway through the session, this was where it was meant to be drying up. This was where it was meant to be getting a little easier. And while the track did dry up rather quickly, and with 4 minutes left, the rainfall pretty much the lowest level it had been since we'd gone into the pits having set our initial times. And I knew that we were probably going to have to go out again because our forecast was saying no more rain. The track was drying up. With that in mind, we got out onto the track, and I was very glad we did because you can see Zhou here running 10 seconds behind the guys at the front, having done a lap on inters when it was at its wettest. He went second fastest of the session, so pressure on us to improve our times. Alonso was down in P13. He got P6. Ocon still a little bit slower with the new side pods, but he did come home P7. And with that, we had just about made it through and out of Q1. P8, P9, comfortable in the end.
And rain falling now in the pit.
But there was more rain. There was more rain to come. Q2 kicked off. Again, you can see the forecast here. Drizzle throughout, getting heavier throughout the session. I was sat thinking, well, if I set a time now, the track's going to be at its driest. The weatherman never lies. He never gets it wrong. So out our drivers went. And you can see here, as we passed the finish line to set our first times of the session, some good times. And the track rainfall, you can see 2.26mm, but it was drying out. And knowing that there was meant to be this moderate rain later on in the session, the track just dried and dried and dried. And with 5 minutes left, I'm sat thinking, this is now at 1.2mm. This is a point where I just have to get the drivers out. We're going to have to set more times. And I knew in going out now, I was setting a risk that we'd set these laps, go into the pits, and then if it did get even drier, not be able to go out. But the forecast still said it was going to be moderate rain for me. So we sent our drivers out again. You can see Alonso was in the danger area. He wasn't after this time, our second run of Q2 with 4.5 minutes left. And with that, I thought job done. You can see cloudy at the bottom for the weather forecast. But of course, the session forecast was for moderate rain. And the rain didn't come. The rain didn't come. The track continued to dry. And suddenly, with 2 minutes left, I was like, I need to get the drivers out. We've got to get them out. The track is the driest it's been all session. In fact, it is now considered a dry track. And suddenly, with a minute left, I had to tell the drivers, look, you can't manage your tyres. You can't get them up to temps. You've basically got to go to the start-finish line. You've got to cross the start-finish line before the session is over. Of course, we have to get past that line to be able to set a lap. Everyone else was on their flying laps. And as Alonso went to cross the line, the track now officially dry. Everyone on inters, I knew we were in trouble. Alonso crossed the line, but the session ended, and Esteban Ocon, just behind, was caught out. Now, I would never recommend taking over your driver's out laps because they go quicker than if you just leave it on automatic. They don't warm up the tyres correctly, but I had to overwrite it. And well, I was glad I did in Alonso's case because it got him to the start-finish line, but with all the time set, a potential blunder. Esteban Ocon, unable to improve on that initial time because he, well, didn't have time to set another lap. And unfortunately, the weather forecast that for us had said it was going to rain was wrong. And with it, we only had one driver into Q3 yet again. And this time, well, it was Alonso. And good news, no more rain. Breathe a sigh of relief, everyone. I'm bloody sick of the rain. 2 races in a row where qualifying really has been jeopardised by the rain. You can see here Alonso just behind Hamilton after the initial laps. After everyone had done their running, it was kind of the usual suspects up at the front, the Red Bull and the Ferrari. You can see here, with 2 minutes left of the session, I'm still paranoidly checking the weather forecast, hoping that it's going to stay dry. The good news was, it did stay dry, and well, Alonso, bad news, didn't get to improve on his time enough. Hamilton was still ahead of him, and I mean, it was disappointing. You have to question, would Alonso have done better with the upgrades? As Russell crossed the line, he went better. As Hamilton crossed the line, he went even better for Mercedes. Mercedes running in P4, P5. Max Verstappen, could he get his car on pole? No. Finishing behind his teammate and Charles Leclerc, ending qualifying. A disappointing session yet again for us. Alonso finishing 8th. Ocon down in P15. And much like last weekend, it's going to be split strategies for our drivers going into today's race. So going into today's race, it is looking like a two-stopper. There is a temptation to maybe try a medium-hard strategy or hard mediums, but ultimately in Miami, a safety car is semi-likely. Certainly we can expect some incidents, and with that in mind, I think just starting on the hard tyre, or at least the medium, is the best way to go. That said, with Fernando Alonso, we're going with a safer strategy. It is hard, mediums, mediums. If there is a safety car, maybe we'll reevaluate the strategy. Maybe we can move on to the second set of mediums sooner. There's a little bit of a window with both sets of tyres that we need to change off to alter our pit stop timing based on how the race unfolds. As for Esteban Ocon, getting a little bit punchy, getting a little bit risky. We're going to start on the mediums with him, then move on to the hards, and then potentially the softs to end the race. If there was a safety car between laps maybe 35 and 42, we might move on to a second set of mediums to the end of the race just to get that free stop. I'm hoping that Esteban Ocon on the mediums is going to be able to get through some traffic, make up a few places, then go long in the middle before a bit of a blockbuster end to the race. That's how I'm dreaming it will go down. Let's see how it actually goes down, shall we?
Looking here at Fernando Alonso. Not as close to the front as they might have wished for, but we know the race order can change a lot during those first few corners. Further back, we've got Esteban Ocon. With their starting position in the back 10, they'll have their work cut out for them. Everything's been building to this. One of the newest races in F1, and hopefully one of the most exciting too. It's the Miami Grand Prix. And it's lights out, and away we go.
Let's see how we get on here. Alonso starting back in P8. Traffic ahead of him. The Mercedes, of course, the team we are really battling with, it feels like, in the constructors. After the last race, they went past us. Esteban Ocon getting a good early move done, but you can see plenty of racing going on in front of him. Both Haas cars fairly up higher on the grid. They're not the quickest car in the world, so I'm hoping we are going to be able to get one over on them. As for Fernando Alonso, really, I think we're going to be matching the likes of Bottas, Hamilton and Russell for pace. In terms of strategies to start this race, worth noting, we are, of course, starting on the hards with Alonso. Looks like all the cars around us, with the exception of the Red Bulls, are going to be on the mediums to start. So a bit of changes in strategies. As for Ocon, he's in a bit of a different role. He's got those mediums to start things, and everyone around him's on the hards. So with this track, interesting parts of the track to note is this bit here, the chicane, then this low-speed corner into the big straight. Of course, low-speed cornering, not one of our best strengths, but the pace that we have should be very, very good here. And to be honest, I'm hoping that Alonso's going to get the move done on Bottas. Looks like he will do. Of course, no DRS for the first 3 laps. We're also going to be keeping a keen eye on Esteban Ocon here. He has the new side pods. They're meant to give us more speed. They're meant to give us more acceleration. Can he extract some of that performance out of it? He's going to try and go up the inside of the McLaren. He's going to get Danny Ricciardo done and Lando Norris in this opening lap. And the next car up the road, it's going to be the Haas. And there might be another chance for the overtake here. Maybe looking to go up the inside of Mick Schumacher, who has not the best start to the season. Haas have consistently been involved in incidents on the track. Going to hope that Ocon can make it through without any incidents.
Well done. Nice job.
As for Alonso, he did manage to get past Bottas on that straight. That is very, very big for us. Hoping now he's going to be able to follow the Mercedes in front, of course, running on the medium tyre, a tyre that is going to last slightly less than Alonso's by comparison. But in terms of our overall race pace, early signs are positive. We've made it through the traffic that I hoped we might with Ocon in the opening lap. Ocon maybe trying to make a move on Magnussen here. In an ideal world, we get past Magnussen here. There might be a chance because we've got the 2 right-handers coming. Door slammed shut by the Haas, but I'll tell you what, Esteban Ocon may be missing out on Q3 because of my own errors. He's making up for it today.
Very well. Come on, keep it up.
I say that. I mean, thinking back to yesterday, I do feel like we were very, very unlucky with the weather. We were very, very unlucky with the forecast that we had just being incorrect. Fernando Alonso right now struggling, to be honest, to keep up with the Mercedes on this lap. He is just about kept in DRS range. You can see this gap sits at just under a second. Hopefully, along this straight, he's going to be okay. George Russell without DRS behind Sainz is good for us. I feel like if the Mercedes were able to keep in touching distance with Sainz, it'd be a lot harder to keep up with them in a straight line. As for Esteban Ocon, he has now got the benefit of DRS. But Guan Yu Zhou in the Alfa Romeo is not going to be as easy to pass, you imagine. The Alfa Romeo is a better car. Probably the 5th best car on the grid after ourselves and the Mercedes. Ahead of him is Pierre Gasly as well in the AlphaTauri. And that AlphaTauri struggling to keep up with Valtteri Bottas behind. So, I don't know. I feel like there's a chance here for Ocon to maybe make something happen. The longer we're stuck behind here, the less optimal it is. Although if we just look at tyre strategies, you can see he has now managed to pass all the guys in the kind of harder tyres, the weaker tyres. And in fact, you can see behind Esteban Ocon, the Haas cars that we passed previously, trailing quite significantly. Esteban and Ocon and Alonso both maybe looking to have a go down this straight. We have straight line speed. We have pace. But you can see here with this train of cars with DRS, it's just proving too strong. They're both Mercedes fighting it out in front of us for Alonso. I'm kind of hoping they take each other out. Looks like they are doing a good job of slowing one another down, which is great for us. It allows us to keep up with them that little bit more easily. Of course, just as a reminder, our aim for the season is top 4 as a team. Mercedes, I feel like on paper are by far and away the 3rd best team. But I do feel like across a season, for a battle of attrition, a battle of strategy, maybe we could get them done. We're rapidly approaching lap number 10, and right now this race has kind of just settled down for now. Of course, a few different strategies across the board, and in fact, there's been a crash. Kevin Magnussen in the Haas has crashed again. I think he's had 4 crashes in the last 3 races. It is not good for Haas. He wasn't running in the points anyway. They did well to get their drivers as high as they did in the rain. Kevin Magnussen approaching the chicane, locks up his front left and then just hits the wall very, very hard. Damages the end plate on his nose. He is going to have to pit. Of course, the safety car is something we have factored into our strategy, but there is going to be no safety car called here. As a result of that, no massive changes for us on the grid, but showing that, you know what, this track is punishing. There are mistakes that will happen. And maybe a safety car could come as a result of one of these incidents as this race plays out. Valtteri Bottas, by the way, has been overtaken by Pierre Gasly. So Gasly now leading this Bottas, Zhou, Ocon train. Norris, by comparison, 8 seconds behind. So, yeah, Ocon looking good right now. I mean, he's 1 place off the points. He's made up 4 places so far in the first 10 laps of this race through raw race pace. I think a lot is going to happen during the pit stops because teams are going to be doing slightly different things here. We might go for an undercut on some of these teams in and around us, given the fact our wear is slightly worse. Look to pit a lap sooner. Well, maybe, just maybe, there's a chance for Ocon to get a move done here. That is not a place I thought an overtake was likely. He's made it work. Just needs to try and keep on the inside, but then he just gets squeezed out by Zhou. He had to stamp on the brakes, and as quickly as we've gained that position, we've lost it again. I'm going to put him into ploy. I'm going to get him to push. Let's have a go on this straight. I do feel like versus the Alfa Romeo, versus the AlphaTauri, we're the quicker car. But is that going to prove to be the case here? Esteban Ocon, he's got the new upgrades. You've not really noticed it, I feel like, so far this weekend. But he might have a chance to go up the inside of the Chinese driver Guan Yu Zhou, the rookie. Already passed once by Ocon, passed again there, and perhaps a chance going into the start-finish line here, because this is another DRS zone. Ocon, we've left him on deploy here, chugged through the battery a little bit, probably, maybe, definitely should just tell him to harvest now. We need to calm down just a little bit, Esteban. You're getting punchy, you're getting keen. Let's just reel it in a little bit, charge up the battery. Maybe then we can set ourselves up for a go on these guys in front. But right now, what I will say, I don't want to get too carried away, we are running in the points. Lap 14, pit window has opened for us with Ocon. We are going to probably be looking to pit in 3 laps time. There is still a little bit of life left in these tyres, so I'm going to push it a little. Worth noting, both cars are showing wear right now on their engines. Maybe could be down a little bit on power, as there is a yellow flag in Sector 1. Who has had a moment here? Someone's run wide. Doesn't look like anything serious. I feel like when you play F1 Manager, there's this moment of excitement where something could happen. It's not quite materialised here, although it's not an insignificant moment. Zhou, struggling on his mediums, had to go offline, had to go off the track, had to hit the brakes to avoid taking any damage on the curbs. With it, he has now been dropped by Ocon and co. The gap now 4 seconds behind, so this is a really, really good position for Ocon to be in. His tyres are overheating slightly, but that's fine. He's going to be pushing on these, pitting in 2 laps' time. We are going to be slapping on the hards, and then probably hoping for a safety car, if we're honest, around lap 55 to 40. As for Fernando Alonso, I feel like a bit of a broken record here. He is still just stuck behind the Mercedes. He's trailing them nicely. There is maybe, just maybe, a temptation to go for the one-stopper. Could we make the one-stopper work on the hards? I'm going to create it as a strategy B. We're going to stay on the A for now. But if we're not making it past these guys and they're towing us along, at least for a lap or 2 more since they are on the mediums, the one-stopper might be the play yet again. Alonso very nearly made it work last race until he hit the wall. And even then, he did finish 11th. I think this could be another opportunity for him with some wise tyre management to maybe get one over on the Mercedes during the pits. Ocon, he's getting racy. I'll tell you what, I did not expect to move here. Goes around the outside of Pierre Gasly, who had to slam on the brakes to avoid going into the back of the Alfa Romeo. Valtteri Bottas did us a favour there. And then I think we got Valtteri Bottas on this next turn as well, which we'll see in a second. Well, apparently the game didn't want to show a highlight for it, but Ocon did get past Valtteri Bottas into that next straight. He's now running in P8, 4 seconds behind Alonso. Of course, he is pushing harder on these tyres, harder on the fuel. We are going to pit him next lap. He's in a really, really good spot here. Alonso not that far up the road, really, considering Alonso was starting right up in P7 or 8. The fact that Ocon has now managed to make up 7 places on track and be in this position, it feels like the strategy to put him on the mediums, to let him race, is going to pay out well for us. Kind of expecting Mercedes to pit in the next lap or 2, but at least for now, they are keeping both drivers out on track. 1 lap later, lap 18, Alonso still just chasing these Mercedes down the straight, expecting one of them to come into the pits this lap. Neither of them are going to come into the pits, which is very interesting because they are on the same tyre as Esteban Ocon, who we are going to pit now. We are going to put him in. I'm beginning to wonder, are the Mercedes going to try the opposite strategy to us? Are they going to run their drivers on the mediums, then switch to the hards and put on the hards to the end? Kind of do the reverse of the one-stop we're trying with Alonso. If that does happen, it's not ideal for us. The good news is Ocon has had a very, very good stop there. Worth noting, Bottas did pit the lap before. Pierre Gasly pitted a few laps sooner too. I'm hoping we're going to come out ahead of Pierre Gasly as he goes around the first corner. And in fact, we have managed to clear him. 3 seconds up the road. Really, really good for Esteban Ocon. Of course, he has still got one more stop to make. Going to be on the hard tyres now for a good chunk of this race. He's going to be running his own race as well with no one really around him. If neither of the Mercs pit here, I am assuming that they are going for the one-stopper. I think they're going for the one-stopper. I thought they were going to do what we were doing with Ocon when I saw them on the same tyre, but they are going very, very long on this current tyre. And I think it's probably a good job that we've managed Alonso's tyre wear like we have, because I'm thinking that we are going to have to go for plan B. We are going to have to go hard mediums. Of course, they're going medium hards. Based on strategy alone, it's going to be close. It may well come down to who gets the beneficial safety car.
Looks like Perez off.
Perez is off the track. He's hit the wall hard. It's a safety car.
DRS is this.
It's a safety car. This is not when we wanted the safety car. Oh, this is bad. This is bad. Perez has had a moment. Ocon has only just pitted. As for Alonso, if I pit now, I'm going to have to pit for a tyre that isn't really beneficial for our overall strategy. I think we are going to commit to the one-stop, even with the safety car, and look to manage these tyres as much as we can. As for Ocon, this safety car might play into our hands slightly. What happened here with Perez? Perez, of course, qualified P1. He's been hunted down by Ferrari, and he just locks up his front left, can't get the turn done, and he slams into the wall there. That was a nasty, nasty hit. And I mean, Red Bull, they had Max Verstappen crash last race. They've had Perez crash here. They are gifting Ferrari the constructors right now. Ocon Ocon might be going for a one-stop all of a sudden. He's going to have to manage these tyres for a long part of this race. I'm not going to update the strategy, I don't think, because I think it's going to be very, very close. But that is certainly an opportunity for us now. Of course, we can have a few laps behind the safety car, a few laps of conserving the tyres. The reality is that the safety car really doesn't help Alonso, because if we pit now, put on the mediums, we're still going to have to pit later on in the race. My concern here is, well, what is happening now. Mercedes in the pits with Hamilton and Russell, they are slapping on the hard tyre, and they might well run to the end of the race on this tyre now, which I said, didn't I, earlier, this entire race, this entire strategy with Alonso and the Mercs might be decided by when is a safety car going to happen. Unfortunately for us, a safety car has happened now. Hamilton and Russell come out in P5 and P6. They are going to have fresh hards. Max Verstappen in a very similar situation to us, I feel like, with Alonso, where you're not really in a position to pit on the hards. You have nothing to gain from doing it. It's some rotten luck. And I fear that this safety car might have wrecked Alonso's chances. It might open up an opportunity for Esteban Ocon, though, because all the cars in front of him are also on the same strategy as Alonso. The silver lining in all of this is, even with this safety car, Alonso is still on for points. He's still on for a pretty good finish. P7, P8 come the end of the race. Feels most likely now. Okay, the safety car is in this lap now. There are some lapped cars in the fray here, so we could still have some weird stuff happening. Of course, Alonso right now, you can see him weaving away, trying to get some temperatures into his tyres. He is now running in P3. And for the non-F1 fans out there, just to explain how this works, on the lap the safety car goes in, it drives off ahead. The lead car of the race, in this case Verstappen, is now the driver who dictates the pace. He can choose when he accelerates. There is no overtaking before the start-finish line. Expect him to go very, very soon. You can see here Alonso unable to pass Sainz, or in fact not Sainz, sorry, Leclerc. We've got Sainz behind us for company. I expect Verstappen to go round this final corner and then hit the throttle. That is what he's going to do. We are back racing. We are back underway. And to be honest, we might have a chance now with Alonso to benefit from the slipstream of a Ferrari, the DRS of a Ferrari. No overtaking going to happen immediately here. As for Ocon, maybe a little bit more havoc here. Both McLarens that we overtook earlier on in the race, now ahead of us again after the safety car, but we will have a chance to overtake them. They've not yet pitted, so we're in a good position, really, with Ocon to make up a place or two. As for Alonso, I've got him on deploy. I want him to try and chase these two out, who are having a moment together. Max Verstappen has run wide. I don't know if Leclerc forced him wide there. There is fighting at the front, and suddenly Verstappen could be under attack from Alonso. So what actually happened here? Verstappen, I'll tell you what, I thought maybe the drivers had come together, but it looks like he's just gone deep into the corner. The hard tyre is difficult to get under temperatures. Under a safety car, you're driving slower. You have a little bit less grip because the tyres don't get up to the heat that they need to be at to perform. And with that, he has lost it. And now Alonso, I mean, he could be fighting for P2 in this race. I shouldn't really be doing this, but I'm going to make us go for it. Let's have a go up the inside of Max Verstappen. If we get him, we move into P2 and we can get carried away. Unfortunately, that Red Bull, very, very quick through these slower corners where we tend to struggle. And I think we have to be a little bit sensible here. We're going to just put neutral on the battery. We can afford to burn a bit more fuel because we saved some under the safety car. Of course, Alonso still got to pit. As for Esteban Ocon, you can see this graph here, kind of the predicted loss of the hards versus the actual loss of the hards. Those 4 laps under the safety car have certainly helped us out. That said, Ocon could now be racing the Mercedes, but if he wants to truly race them, he needs to get past the McLarens in front. These 2 papaya cars in the way. With that in mind, I'm going to ask him to get a little bit punchy for this next lap. The reality is, though, we're not going to be able to stay like this for long because we need to make these tyres last to the end of the race. There's been another crash out on track. A 3rd crash this race. I fear it's another Haas. I think it was Mick Schumacher who had the incident. While that was all going on, we'll enjoy this. Esteban Ocon sends it up the inside of Danny Ricciardo. In behind is where the crash happened. I'm not sure entirely what happened, but Mick Schumacher was the man in the barrier. I don't think a safety car is going to be necessary. That was one of the 2 overtakes I wanted to get done this lap. There is still one more McLaren in front, though, for us to try and make a move on. Well, the fighting's going on the track. What happened here? Mick Schumacher has the AlphaTauri behind, and I'll tell you what, he has just lost the rear then. Clattered the wall, but I think he'll be able to get out, and because the pack is all bunched up, he's not going to be in the way of anyone. Can Esteban Ocon get this move done on Danny Ricciardo? I thought it was Ricciardo he'd done earlier, but actually Ricciardo was ahead of Norris after the restart. Norris is now in the pits. So cars on the same strategy as Alonso starting to pit. In an ideal world, we keep these Alonso tyres going a little bit longer. Unfortunately, we have lost DRS to Verstappen, who's lost DRS to Leclerc. We are creating a little bit of a train behind us now with Alonso. But if you want to get to the end on these tyres, we need to make them last. Esteban Ocon right up behind Ricciardo, who is probably going to pit at the end of this lap anyway, but getting the move done sooner rather than later is certainly in our interest. We're on deploy on the battery. We're trying to make this push throughout this lap, and I'll tell you what, Ocon might just get him on the outside here. The DRS coming into effect, the superior battery mode as well. That is a big, big move for Esteban.
Keep it up.
Of course, we are weighing up the possibility of trying to make him, well, eke out these tyres to the end of the race, and getting that move done now probably makes that a little easier. Unfortunately, in our bid to save our tyres, we lost DRS on the Ferrari here, and then Lewis has just sent it down the straight with DRS. That Mercedes is a faster car than us normally. It's certainly a faster car than us now when we're on these worn hards. With Alonso, I'm basically staying out on track, hoping for another safety car. You know, the Mercedes got the perfect safety car for them. Maybe we'll get the perfect safety car for us. Right now, Alonso running in P4. Probably going to get done by Russell. Alonso has now lost DRS on Hamilton up the road. 2.5 seconds ahead. I'll tell you what, with these worn tyres, we are struggling for pace. The only silver lining in all of this, which might vanish in just a second as Russell might look to make a move on Alonso, is the fact that Esteban Ocon is catching us very, very quickly here. Alonso is basically holding up Russell, which is bringing Ocon into play slightly, although that gap is not closing quite as quickly as we'd like. Of course, with Ocon, I'm thinking we're going to try and run to the end in a very similar manner to how the Mercedes did. Alonso is going to try and do some defending on Russell here, but unfortunately, on these worn tyres, he's going to get done. We might be able to have one last attempt at getting past him, but I fear now, even with ERS on deploy, going into the next DRS zone, we're not going to be able to keep in touching distance. It's going to take a monumental drive from Alonso here, really, to make the one-stopper work. It's very, very marginal. This the one spot where we can maybe make something happen. I'll tell you what, Alonso's got a very, very good drive out the corner. He's got the slipstream. He's going to have DRS now. Can he make something happen into this next turn? Of course, we've seen a few incidents already here. Perez has hit the wall, so he's got to manage these tyres carefully. Fernando Alonso looks to send it around the outside. Can he eke out the Mercedes on the outside? It's going to be very, very close side-by-side racing here. But into the chicane, Alonso's going to go. He regains 4th place. And you might be wondering, Jack, why are you pushing so hard for 4th? I'll tell you why we're pushing. It gives Ocon a little bit of a chance. Which I say, he has now been overtaken by Bottas. But this group suddenly much, much closer together than they were previously. Bottas did pit much sooner, I feel like, onto the hards. Although he is on a similar level of wear to us. I feel like this Ocon-Bottas battle might be one that emerges now between now and the checkered flag in 27 laps time. All that effort that Alonso had, gone half a lap later. The Mercedes on these fresher tyres, they're quicker than us. We saw it with Lewis Hamilton. We've seen it here with George Russell. And whilst there is a temptation to up the ERS, push like we did previously, I think the reality is we have to settle for where we are. With both drivers now, I'm looking to conserve tyres as long as we can. With Alonso, the one stop is still going to be very, very marginal. In an ideal world, he makes these hard tyres last a further 4 laps, which on 39% condition is going to be very touch and go. At this point, we're kind of committed to the one stop with both drivers if we want to get points. Of course, the safety car has really helped Ocon's strategy. It's kind of shafted Alonso's, if we're being honest. And in fact, Ocon, despite the fact he's conserving, he still wants to race Valtteri Bottas. He still wants to have a go against the Finn. And I'll tell you what, he might be able to make the move sticker. He's going to squeeze Bottas out. And Bottas has lost a little bit of time there. So Alonso's pit window has opened, hoping that we can just get a little bit of a toe on George Russell. Elsewhere, Hamilton has managed to get past Carlos Sainz. There has been a crash in Sector 1. Who's had a moment there? who has had a moment. I can't see any action on track. It's George Russell. Alonso was battling against Russell, putting on a little bit of pressure, and I thought we were going to be waving goodbye. And Russell has just lost the rear end there at the end of Sector 1. That is a bad bit of news for Mercedes. I'm kind of tempted to try and get him to hold up the pack here. If he could just slow down Bottas and Russell in behind, it's going to increase the advantage that Alonso has to maybe, just maybe get, well, at least Russell done in the pits. Unfortunately, well, we've set the instruction hold cars back behind. That has not worked very well, because suddenly the Alfa Romeo's ahead of us. Although it did have the benefit of DRS, we might now get our own little benefit of DRS. And Esteban Ocon, I'll tell you what, he and Bottas are going to be, I feel like, squabbling constantly here. They've been overtaking at different parts of the track, it feels like, consistently. Esteban Ocon, last sector, side to side with Valtteri Bottas yet again. Every lap they're trading blows. As for Alonso, he's going to be coming into the pit this next lap. We're going to be moving on to the medium tyres. We've made the hards last as long as we needed to. We thought they might be the tyre that are more marginal. The safety car definitely helped us out. Going on to the mediums now, he is going to have to make them last the next, 22 laps of this race. Alonso coming into the pits for his stop. Unfortunately, we waited out a safety car for as long as we could. The one stopper that we're going for is the original strategy, but it has been compromised. It is not as optimal as perhaps it would have been. We know he's going to be coming out in a rough spot. The only silver lining we really have is Magnussen's going to need to pit. A lot of these cars that have gone onto the hards with maybe 60% wear are going to be marginal towards the end. So the current strategy with Ocon is to pit again. And I think a lot of the cars on the hards probably are going to have to pit again. But there is a plan B to try and make these tyres last to the end. It would involve a massive management job from us. I think it's going to be difficult, to be honest. Based on the data we've seen with Alonso, I think we have to stick with strategy A. If we get a kind of safety car now, we could perhaps move on to the mediums and try and make them last. Realistically, they've got 17 laps of life in them, so a safety car in 4 laps' time would be optimal. As for now, well, you can see we are fighting an Alfa Romeo. Someone has gone wide. Doesn't look like a safety car is going to be needed, although for a moment I started to believe it might happen. And whilst that was all going on, Bottas has done Ocon. Russell is still closing the gap on his hards. Russell's hards, by the way, have a tiny bit more life left in them. They pitted later, of course, Mercedes. And I feel like they are probably running a one-stopper. So whilst a safety car might help us with getting Ocon onto some mediums sooner, or maybe even making these hards last to the end of the race,
Nicely done.
it's going to help out our rivals as well. Esteban Ocon, Valtteri Bottas. You've heard this before. You've seen it before. We're going to get passed on the straight with the help of some DRS. You've seen it before. You've heard me say it before. Valtteri Bottas overtaking Ocon. Worth noting, you can see it behind George Russell has caught the pack, which we feared might be the case. We think that he is not going to need to stop again. All I can really hope is that we can somehow keep him behind us for the foreseeable future. Fernando Alonso going to have to make it through the pack here on these fresher medium tyres. He has got Kevin Magnussen. Next up the road, I believe, is one of the McLarens. Bad news, Russell's got us, and I think he's got Bottas as well. We were hoping that maybe ourselves and Bottas fighting would mean that Russell couldn't get by, but you can see here, Russell, a tricky customer, goes up the outside of ourselves, and then he's also got Bottas as well. It's not looking good for us. Mercedes pulling away, Hamilton and Russell right up there, following the Verstappen pit, the safety car incident. And, of course, Perez crashing out. Esteban Ocon, Esteban, you need to chill here, son. Bottas and Russell are battling ahead, and we're trying to conserve our tyres and make these last to the end. Of course, we've also got engine wear on both our cars to contend with. As for Alonso, currently running in the points, currently half a second behind Tsunoda, who's 11 seconds behind Gasly. If Alonso does want to have a late attack on Pierre, we're going to need to get this move done on Pierre's teammate, Tsunoda. The Japanese driver moves over to the inside to cover. I'm going to switch to deploy. I'm going to switch to aggressive here. We might have one last chance this lap as we go into actually lap 43. DRS, of course, in this sector, kind of useful, but a shorter area to use it. Alonso is on the fresher medium tyres. He is going to make the move work. And with that, he's now up to P9. Pierre Gasly next up the road for us. A long way away. interesting bit of news. Verstappen's pitted. Verstappen has put on some new mediums. That means that Red Bull are going for the two-stopper. A few of the other teams have also now elected to move to a two-stopper strategy. I'm wondering if Alfa Romeo and AlphaTauri are going to follow suit. Right now, you can see Gasly trailing Ocon by a few seconds. Ocon still clinging on to the back of Bottas and Russell. If Bottas and Gasly pit, do I follow them in to mirror them? Do I play it safe? Do we just, play for the same position, basically, and do whatever they do? Or do we look to be different? Do we look to be brave? I have to make a decision now, because I'll tell you what, Bottas is in the pit, as is Gasly. I think for Ocon, our only hope really is that we can trail Russell for the end of this race and try this one-stopper. There's 12 laps left. The original plan was to pit this lap for softs. We're trying to make the hards last as long as we can. It's going to be very, very difficult to make it happen. I have to make a call here. I have to make a decision in this moment. If we pit, we are going to come out around P9 or P10 with Tsunoda still to stop. But these guys ahead on 50%, very, very unlikely to stop again. I have to make a decision. And I'm umming and I'm ahhing. I mean, right now we're keeping behind Russell. With our tyre wear, if we could keep in touching distance of Russell, maybe I go a lap longer on these hards, try and burn them up as much as I can with 1 or 2 more really aggressive laps where we just tail Russell, then we pit for the softs.
Copy.
Everyone who's pitted, I was going to say everyone who's pitted has gone on to the mediums. That's not true at all. Verstappen went on to the mediums. The guys who pitted a lap later have gone on to the faster soft tyre. This is brave. Logically, if I want to play it safe, I pit this lap with Ocon, but I'm not going to do that. We're going to get punchy. We're going to get racy. There's still a little bit of life left in these hard tyres, and with Russell maybe helping us around,
All right, good job, Esteban.
I'm going to keep Esteban out. We are going to pit this lap, though, for the hards. That is the plan. Pit now for, not the hards, sorry, for the softs. And then we can really, really push on them. Of course, all the other guys who pitted for softs, I'm looking at Bottas and Gasly, pitted 2 laps earlier. So their tyres might be a little bit more marginal. Looking at the predictions, the softs have a lot of life to give, so we will be able to push them very, very hard to the end. As for Alonso, with all those teams stopping, he's now running in P6. Tsunoda's managed to hold on to the back of him on those older hard tyres. Alonso kind of riding his own race now. Going to be vibing along, maybe having Tsunoda for company. Just making these tyres last, making sure we have fuel. He's running in a P6 position right now. The one stop for him looks pretty solid. So Ocon is going to pit here from P4 in the race. We are looking to come up ahead of Bottas out the pits. That is the big challenge. Bottas and Gasly, you can see a bit of a gap between them now. They've not had anyone to give them DRS like we had Russell for one of our 2 in-laps. I think realistically, we're probably going to be coming out behind Verstappen, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. We might be able to use Verstappen to give us some pace. Tsunoda has also pitted on his hards. And you can see now, Ocon on these fresh softs. Verstappen coming around the last corner. I think we are going to be outside the DRS range that I hoped we might have. However, we are now ahead of Valtteri Bottas. So not only have we now got these softs for an extra lap or 2 of life, because Bottas pitted 2 laps sooner, we actually did make up time there by staying out. We did make the right decision. Only by a second, only by maybe a second and a half. I ummed and I ahed about it, but the right call was made there. So right now, Alonso is running in P5. He is getting caught by Max Verstappen, though, at a reasonable speed. You can see Max Verstappen gaining by about a second a lap. So realistically, he's going to be attacking us, if not next lap, the lap after. Unfortunately for us, you can kind of see it in the 2D view here. Max Verstappen is coming up behind us. He's going to probably be within DRS range in about half a lap. I think we might just be delaying the inevitable. You can see Verstappen hunting behind. Alonso holding the position for now, but with that rear flap open, Verstappen is going to get Alonso this lap. It's a case of when, not if. Really for Alonso now, he needs to be looking over his shoulders because Esteban Ocon, not too far away all of a sudden. We might have to let Ocon by with Alonso, currently trailing by about 4 seconds. By the end of this race, I think they're going to be racing, and you can see Bottas still looming behind Ocon. As for Verstappen, this is where I expect him to get us. He's going to have DRS. The Red Bull is just a faster car. Let's be real. Of course, Verstappen was running the same strategy as Alonso. Kind of got shafted by the safety car in the same way. Unlike us, who kind of pitted to go long and did the one-stopper, the Red Bull decided to pit earlier. Of course, they've already made 2 stops versus Alonso's 1. And with this move here, they're just showing the raw race pace of their car. They have more than made up the entire time it takes to do a pit stop with that move, with 6 laps to spare. With 5 laps left here, the only silver lining really is Alonso is getting a pretty nice tow off Max Verstappen. It's helping us a little bit with our overall speed, but running in that warmer air behind the Red Bull is going to impact the tyre wear, but I think it's probably a cost we just have to swallow. You can see Alonso less than a second behind. He gets DRS on all these straights. Heading into the final 2 laps, Alonso still in DRS range of Verstappen. Ocon unable to catch his teammate as a result of that tow. Valtteri Bottas is now running a little way behind Ocon, probably having to manage these softs to the end. We should perhaps think to do the same. I think the strategy with Ocon of pitting a little later has allowed us to push on these tyres for a lot longer than the Alfa Romeos were able to. And barring Alonso's tyres completely falling off at the end here, we are looking on for a P6 and P7. Which, given where we started this race, really isn't a bad place to be. The 2 stoppers worked well for Ocon. Fernando, very, very unlucky with a safety car, unfortunately. I kind of talked it into existence. Alonso and Ocon looking destined to get 6th and 7th place. This is the big fight on the track right now. Can Lewis Hamilton possibly get Carlos Sainz? As we head into the tail end of this, the final lap, Leclerc is running off ahead. He is going to win things here, barring an absolute disaster on the final turn. Lewis Hamilton is going to have the benefit of DRS. He is very, very close behind this Ferrari going into this final sector. He will have DRS for this run into the final corner. P2 up for grabs. Would be a massive, massive scalp for Mercedes if they could get it. The Ferrari is clearly the fastest car. Leclerc is going to finish this race in P1. Hamilton looking to maybe have a go at the outside of Carlos Sainz, who's going to hold on to his position for now. There might be one last little run in, but you can see the lack of traction out that final corner. Gonna cost Lewis 2nd place. Sainz holds on. Hamilton comes home for 3rd. As for ourselves, Alonso and Ocon cruising along, vibing along. They are going to come home. Verstappen looking to maybe have a go on Russell at the end here. If Verstappen could somehow make a move happen, it'd be doing us a mighty big favour, but unfortunately, it's a favour we are not going to receive here. George Russell locks out the front 4 for Mercedes. 3rd and 4th place for them. As for ourselves, Alonso is going to cross the line to finish P6. Ocon is going to come P7. It's a pretty good drive for us on the whole. We had some really, really good pace here. We knew this track was going to suit us. I think on the whole, the strategies worked well. The 1 stop for Alonso was perhaps the right strategy. Maybe we could have adjusted under the safety car. But as the likes of Bottas and Gasly showed, the 2 stopper was a little bit slower. And really, if it wasn't for the timing of Ocon stops, we could have found ourselves running in P9. So I think we made the right decision on Ocon. We ummed and we ahed about it. Maybe more than I should have done. But the right decision made in the end. And with it, some valuable points scored. So looking at the final standings for this race, you can see Max Verstappen, one of the big losers here. He was in fact the only car in the front 6 to pit twice. Of course, Esteban Ocon did stop twice, but managed to make up 8 positions. A lot of them were done in that opening stint on the medium tyres. That was definitely the right decision to move on to that tyre. You can see lots of gains across the board, really. Unfortunately, the likes of Guan Yu Zhou, Mick Schumacher and Perez, who retired, all suffering from, well, incidents they had on track. Pretty interesting to see that we were able to get both cars ahead of the Alfa Romeo. We definitely look good for 4th place, which is the aim this season. You can see right now we are running in 4th, quite comfortably ahead of the Alfa Romeo. But with the results today, Mercedes do pull clear. As for the Drivers' Championship, it's the 2 Ferrari drivers leading the way. Leclerc pulling ahead of Sainz with that race win, but still not a massive gap between them just yet. Sergio Perez with his retirement fails to score points. As for our own drivers, Alonso and Ocon running in 7th and 8th, kind of where I suppose you'd expect them to be. All in all, a pretty good race. I feel like the Mercedes obviously got the benefit of the safety car because they started on the mediums. They were able to pit for the hards on 1 stop off the safety car. Because we were doing the opposite with Alonso, we just didn't quite have that opportunity. At the end of the day, it's a bit of a, luck of the draw.
it'll balance itself out over the season. Maybe? Next time out, we are going to be heading to Barcelona, and the circuit to Barcelona, Catalunya, of course, the track where a lot of pre-season testing has historically taken place in Formula 1. It's a circuit that, to be honest, doesn't really play to our strengths, but with it being Fernando Alonso's home Grand Prix, we're going to want to get him a good position. If he could get a podium in Spain, that would be pretty special in our car. Hopefully you're looking forward to that episode. Hopefully, of course, you enjoyed this episode as well. Qualifying, I'll tell you what, if we nailed that for once, we'd probably do really well in the race. Maybe next time we can get both cars finally back into Q3. Please don't rain. F1 gods, no rain next episode. Thank you. I'll see you guys then. Take it easy. It's me, Jack, and I'm out. Praying to the gods. It only took 5 episodes.